So here we're going to be installing a microphone for our radio. Most radios, including JVC radios, come with this microphone, and basically it makes it so you can take audio calls or use your Google Assistant in the car, and you can use this external microphone versus the one built into your phone when you have Bluetooth connected. A lot of people mount their microphone up here, up towards the sun visor. That does work. However, if you read the manual, it's actually recommended to be mounted right here on your steering column. You know, if you're speaking into a microphone or singing into a microphone, usually you have it close to your face. And when I'm on the phone, I'm not looking up at the ceiling talking. I'm usually looking straight ahead at the road, where my voice would potentially hit the microphone that we're going to be mounting right here. First, let's go ahead and unplug anything we have into the cigarette lighter. In my case, I have my dash cam plugged in that I installed in the previous video. Go ahead and close that up, keep the dust out of there. Next, we want to remove this trim piece. So there's 4 clips holding it in. There's 1, 2, and 3, and 4 that are kind of sideways. So I found it's best if you reach into the shift boot right here, pull straight up. That undoes those 2, then pull it backwards. So grab onto it. You can take it all the way off by unscrewing this. Takes a while. With that off, this whole trim assembly comes up and off. And one trick that can help you when removing or putting the bezel back is if you pop this little plate off and then push this down with your finger or a screwdriver. This allows us to move that backwards so that we can have more space to pull the bezel off. Next, let's go ahead and remove this main bezel. It's not going to come all the way off because you have your hazard switch plugged in along with your clock, these buttons up here, and all of your cigarette lighters. This item is very fragile in most cars, but just take a plastic pry tool and just go slow. Work your way evenly around the edges. In my case, I'm going to start from the bottom. Bottom left is out. To the bottom right. That's out. You can go ahead and remove your ashtray. Just slide it out, push down, and let's work our way up around the sides. And here, this item should come out. Go ahead and unplug the hazard switch, push down, wiggle, and slide that out of there. Then we can repeat that process for the clock, the ECT buttons, the defroster, and everything else. And clear down here, there's a cigarette lighter. So this piece just slides straight off, along with there's a little clip for a light for the ashtray or some other sensor. Go ahead and unplug that, and repeat that process to everything else. In my case, I have 2 additional cigarette lighters that I need to unplug below the ashtray. In my case, I already have my aftermarket radio in. I have 4 Phillips or 8mm screws. Let's go ahead and remove those. I want to be careful not to ding up your radio. Go ahead and remove the radio. I know that this screen is already scratched, but I actually bought the unit used that way for a heavy discount. In my case, I want to mount it right here, but there's not a good spot to run the wire, so I need to remove this trim. Those 2 bolts loose, we can gently pry this down. This trim piece simply pops off. It's just 1 clip right here. Then another one here. And then there would typically be another Phillips screw here. And then underneath here, there's also 2 Phillips screws. 1 here and 1 here. You can go ahead and remove this trim. Don't pull it too far forward or you'll risk ripping the wiring harness attaching these buttons. Now that's loose and out of the way. Let's go ahead and run the wire through there and back into our radio. Let's take this end, and so we're gonna mount it right here. So let's kind of route this down through here. We can pull all the slack through. And let's feed this down below the climate control. You want to make sure it's not in the way of any of these moving parts. We should be fine here. Here I've taken all the slack, bunched it up. Go ahead and tighten that up and just wrap that around. We'll tuck that back here. We have a lot of extra space here where the tripod legs are because I removed the factory amplifier. And then up here on the steering column, we want to go ahead and clean off any dust or debris. Use a microfiber towel and an alcohol pad to clean the surface before adding the sticker. And then when mounting this, we don't want it too far back or too far forward to the point where we can't turn our steering wheel. So let's just put it here in the center. Then let's just press and hold that for a few seconds. Our microphone is mounted, You'll notice it's kind of on a microphone stand, so you can kind of angle it up or down. Okay, here we've got this routed. When you route it through here, you want to make sure there's nothing sharp. Right here, for example, there's something pretty sharp, so I mounted it all the way back here so it's touching the firewall. Then here, let's take the end. Here on our radio, we have this one labeled mic. Let's go ahead and plug that in there. Make sure it snaps into place. Then we can go ahead and mount this back up. And while we're here, we have this GPS cable. Looks like this, goes into the back of the radio. And this side is something used for Apple CarPlay, just to help get better accuracy when using the GPS. And so this side on the radio, let's just plug it in where it says GPS. It'll only go one way because it's a U shape. Right here it says GPS. Go ahead and plug that in. And this piece they recommended, essentially mounting it right here and running the cable back behind the dash. However, there's almost no space there. I don't want to risk cracking the dashboard. In my case, I'm actually going to be mounting it up under here. So it's not the best practice, but that way it's away from all the noise of all the radio wires. And, you know, I don't have to pull the dash out or drill a little hole in it or, you know, run the cable behind. And I can just mount it right up in here. Okay, and here we've got all that slack bundled up, zip tied. Let's go ahead and snip this off. And this usually comes with pre-applied adhesive, but since it was a used radio, the adhesive is missing. So I'm going to be using a 3M command strip that you'd use to hang up paintings or something. Go ahead and peel this side off. This adhesive off. Press and hold for about 10 seconds. While we're in here, let's go ahead and connect our backup camera wire. So as you can see, this side has a video input, then we have this power cable here. Let's take our wire strippers and strip away some of this protective coating. Now we have that. Here on the radio, we have this one labeled reverse. Next, we need to tie these wires together. I'm going to be using a wire nut, twist them together and put them into the wire nut. Those are now wired together, as well as a R dash cam, which I'm assuming is the rear camera. Let's go ahead and plug that in. Now we need to unbundle this cable and run it all the way to the rear of the vehicle. And this wire, we ran it behind the climate control and reinsert the radio. We also have this input USB that can be used for media or FLAC files or movies. So for now, we're going to dangle that downwards. Lots of cables, so just tuck them. Be gentle. You don't want to, you know, rip any of the wires that we've soldered or connected together. We've got the radio dry fit into place. It's very important to bolt it back in. That way it doesn't come flying out in a car accident or upon hard acceleration. You don't have to worry about a hard acceleration in a 99 4Runner. Let's go ahead and reconnect the cigarette lighter here. This harness, don't want to twist the wires and have them snap. We have our LED in where the ashtray light is. And the secret to plugging in the bezel back into the center console is, one, we obviously want to line up the clips. But then two, these inner vents plug directly into these vents. So let's go ahead and reconnect all of these wires. We have our hazard, ECT button, our clock. Okay, looks like lined up. Video's lined up. So let's connect. Okay, that's all snapped in. Just to test, we can put the vehicle in park. Put the key in ACC. See, our clock is lit up. Our flashers are working. Our windows rolling down. Stereo is powering on. Let's just double check our cigarette lighters have power. Here we can reassemble our shift boot. So slide this over, line this up, and then push these two clips in first. So just line that up and push forward. And here on the back side, just push down. Reinstall your shift knob. You want to make sure that the symbols align. Let's go ahead and reinsert our ashtray. Push this down. Go ahead and reinsert any screws you have with your Phillips screwdriver. Number 2. Go ahead and reinsert your trim panel here. And then right now I have this cable for my backup camera that I'm going to be running along the bottom with the rest of the speaker wires. If you don't have that, you can simply push this up and then reinsert the two 10mm bolts. One here and one right here.